Hello and welcome to Math here at BCPS-TV. Thank you very much for joining us, however you are joining us, whether it's on TV or on YouTube. We want to thank you for spending your time with us. This is Mr. Tang, and I'm here with Week 6, Lesson 1, Converting Customary Units. In our lesson today, we're going to take a look at a variety of mathematical models and use properties of multiplication and division in order to convert customary units. Today we're going to be focusing on length, customary units of length. Let's start off by taking a look at these couple images here. How are the following the same and how are they different? We have 15 inches and then we have 1 foot 3 inches. How are those the same? How are those different? They're both purple. They're both in that cool font. How else are they the same and how are they different? And then we could take a look underneath of that. We have 2 yards and we're comparing that to 6 feet. How are those the same? How are those different? You might have some ideas, some things that you might already know. And if so, that's great. We're off to a good start. All right, let's move right along. Next, let's take a look at what we already know about math and the observations that we can make here to help us understand how to convert customary units of length a little bit better.
How do you change from one unit of length to another? Think about this question during the lesson. Some frogs can jump 11 feet. What are some other ways to describe this distance? Let's work on this together. How do inches and yards compare to feet? Think about this question as you do the activity that comes next.
I'm glad we have the opportunity to use this number line as a visual to help us represent exactly what we're working with here. So we have 1 foot, we have 12 inches, and we have 1 yard. If we're looking at these different units of measurement and how they compare to each other, we can see that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, and then we can see that 1 yard is going to be equivalent to 3 feet. Having this understanding is going to be very important and vital for our understanding of why these numbers make sense and how they relate to one another. The biggest thing that we're doing here is making these relationships and understanding how they work with one another. So if I have 11 feet, that means I'm going to have 11 groups of 12 inches. If I have 11 feet, that means within those 11 feet, every time I have 3 feet, I have 1 yard. So this basic understanding is going to help us understand how we can use math. So instead of thinking of it with the math in mind first, we're going to think of it as, let's see how I can use whatever I understand about the units of measurement, and then how can I apply what I know about math to help me solve that. So for example, if I have 11 groups of 12, the visual is going to play that in a little bit for you and show you. They're going to line them all up nicely, and they're going to have 11 groups of 12. That's going to help you understand which operation you're going to be doing without someone telling you ahead of time. All right, Pearson, take it away.
Which is greater, 12 inches or 1 yard? 1 yard is greater than 12 inches. The yard is a larger unit of measure than the inch. To change larger units to smaller units, multiply. To convert 11 feet to inches, think 1 foot equals 12 inches, and then find 11 times 12. What is the product? There are 132 inches in 11 feet. Why did you multiply to find inches? You multiply to find inches because you are converting from larger units to smaller units.
Again, I love that Pearson is telling us to multiply when we're going from larger units to smaller units, but the bigger understanding here is going to be an understanding of why. Saying to yourself that multiplication sign represents the word, like you could think of it as the words groups of. If you have 11 groups of 12, that should help shine a little bit of light as to why we're multiplying.
To change smaller units to larger units, divide. To convert 11 feet to yards, think 3 feet equals 1 yard, and then determine 11 divided by 3. What is the quotient? 11 divided by 3 equals 3 with remainder 2. What does the remainder represent? The remainder represents the number of feet that are left over. 11 feet equals 3 yards and 2 feet. You now know how to convert customary units of length, such as the inch, foot, and yard. How many yards are there in 23 feet? Try it yourself.
Thanks for the video, Pearson. Love the visuals. Although that poor robot. Anyway, boys and girls, I hope you see how important it is to establish an understanding of the relationship between the different units of measurement. So regardless of whether we're doing length like we are today, or if we're doing converting units of measurement for weight or capacity, having that understanding of the units first, the different units that you're using, and how they relate to one another, that's going to be the first and most important piece of information that you have before you can decide whether you're multiplying or dividing. Without that understanding, we're just essentially guessing or at whether or not we're going up or down to multiplying or dividing. So with that being said, let's go ahead and continue with the question that they left us with. How many yards are there in 23 feet? Okay, so what do we know? What information do we have here? I know that in 1 yard, there are 3 feet. So that means for every 3 feet, we have 1 yard. So I'm going to start off by using a model. If I have 23 feet, for every 3 feet, we have 1 yard. So in using a visual like this, we can go ahead and continue to highlight 1 yard every time we have 3 feet. So we have 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards. So take a look at how many yards we have and how many feet that was equivalent to. So we had 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. So out of the 23 feet, we have 21 of them circled off into 7 yards. Can we add another yard to the end of this? No, because we only have 2 feet, right? So this can also be seen as a division problem because we are starting off with our feet, which is a smaller unit, and we know that for every 3 feet we equals to 1 yard. So 23 divided by 3 is going to give us 7, remainder 2, like we just saw. So what does that remainder represent? We just said it in the last slide, 2 feet left. Or if we wanted to convert the feet to inches, we take that 2 feet and multiply it by 12 because 2 groups of 12 equals 24. Here are a couple of other models that you can use as you're working through your conversions today. Having a double number line with both of the units of measurement you're looking at can be helpful, but it has to be lined up with your um, equal units of measurement here. So for example, 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. 1 yard, 3 feet. 2 yards, 6 feet. So this is a nice way to kind of have a comparison on 2 different number lines. And then the tape diagram model is very similar to what we just did with our 23 feet. All right, boys and girls, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to try this on your own with a real world problem here. I'm going to leave the screen up for a little bit. Feel free to take a picture of it, pause the program if you need to. I'm going to read it to you, give you a little bit of details, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Mr. Foley, shout out to him, is taping the outside lines on the basketball court in his school gymnasium. I hope he's taking this isolation thing seriously and he's not around other people. The court is marked off in feet, but the tape is only sold in inches. How many inches of tape will Mr. Foley need to tape the perimeter of the basketball court? Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see it clearly, but we have one side is 50 feet, that's 50, and we have another side here at 94 feet, 94. Okay, take your time, use what you know, use what you've learned, go ahead and solve that. Well, as you finish up figuring out what Mr. Foley's up to, feel free to move on to your next practice page, which is going to be 11-1. Definitely get through numbers 1 through 8, and then for additional practice, you can finish up the rest of the page. We have some nice tables, some conversions, some comparisons, all the good stuff. And then before you finish up for today, make sure that you do your assessment piece, which is going to be the tiered task, Hiking Trails Part 2. This is the piece that you want to make sure to check and see if your teacher is collecting, because you want to get a grade for all the hard work that you were able to do. As always, it was my pleasure hanging out with you today. Take care of yourself, take care of your families, wash your hands, be nice to people, and do math.